Brandon Aiyuk had the most impressive game-winning touchdown catch I can remember. How he kept his foot in bounds while not letting the other foot touch out of bounds is physics-defying. Welcome to That's Good Sports. I am Brandon. I will never take my eyes off of Davante Adams' Perna. And not because he's an amazing receiver to watch, but because he might throw a football in my face. Who? Today I learned Broncos running back Javonte Williams wears Michael Myers thigh pads. I'll have more on that tonight in the Broncos recap that drops every Monday evening. This episode is all about discussing the best and worst plays, best and worst games, players, and highlights from NFL Sunday, Week 14. Let's do it. That's good sports. Nothing in life is free, but subscribing to this YouTube channel is free. And it really helps me out. So if you like football, give me a sub, because I need it. Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh.com/That'sGoodSports14. I'm all about the one pot and one pan HelloFresh meals. One pan pork fajita lettuce wraps is what I made this week. And it's not that it tasted any better than the other great HelloFresh meals, but anytime I can cook my entire dinner in one pan, I am happy. And HelloFresh has tons of one-pan 20-minute meal options to save you time. If you have family in town for the holidays, HelloFresh offers seasonal 5-star recipes like turkey ragu and gnocchi and add-ons for dessert or seasonal snacks. The kind of simple but fancy-sounding meals that will trick your family and friends into thinking you know what you're doing. And if your family has varying dietary restrictions, you can select Calorie Smart, pescatarian, and vegetarian options. Using HelloFresh also cuts down on food waste by 25% compared to going to the grocery store. So go to HelloFresh.com/That'sGoodSports14 for up to 14 free meals and 3 free gifts. Link below. HelloFresh.com/That'sGoodSports14. Let's begin with the Steelers versus Vikings from Thursday night. Best. Dalvin Cook, with one working shoulder, gashed the Steelers defense for over 200 rushing yards. Dalvin Cook could have been on crutches and still would have put up 100 yards with the wide open running lanes the Steelers defense provided. The Steelers gave up over 450 yards to the Vikings offense. The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't score any points of their own until there was 2 minutes left in the third quarter, at which point they were trailing 29-0. And yet, the only person being blamed for their loss is wide receiver Chase Claypool. Worst football narratives. Look, I get it. It's a silly time to celebrate for Chase Claypool. And the Zapruder film shows Eric Kendrick smartly ripped the ball out there to cost the Steelers a precious few seconds. But was anyone watching that final drive? Claypool made 3 key receptions, including this insane grab on the sideline to dig Pittsburgh out of the depths of hell. He would have had 4 on the stat sheet on that drive, but one of his first downs was called back for an illegal block in the back by the Steelers lineman. I'm not sure why he became the scapegoat, but it's kind of fucked up. Jets versus Saints. Best. Alvin Kamara finally being back on the field. He scored the Saints' first touchdown, one of my favorite TDs from the weekend. He jukes a man, shows burst, and then gets violently thrown into the end zone for the score. 120 yards on the day for Kamara. Worst. Taysom Hill's no contact fumble. I know you're not a pure passer, Taysom, but get a grip, man. Seriously, evaluate your grip so this doesn't ever happen again. And do not blame your injured finger. Hill actually had a prototypical Taysom Hill game. 73 rushing yards, 2 rushing TDs, and 175 passing yards. Worst, Zach Wilson completed less than 50% of his passes, but none of those completions were to the other team, so improvement. And like every struggling team on offense, was his team's leading rusher with 33 yards. Just 18 total carries by the Jets. Falcons versus Panthers. Best? Cam Newton tying Earl Campbell with the 74th career rushing touchdown to give Carolina an early lead. And then In what is becoming all too predictable behavior, Cam Newton follows up a rushing TD to start the game with a bad throw. This time pick sixed by Mykal Walker, getting both his first career interception and his first career score. Worst, Cam Newton gets benched for PJ Walker. Why aren't the Panthers playing better after firing Joe Brady? I wonder. There were 0 impressive stats from this game. Not a single player went over 100 yards. Not a single player scored more than once. Not a single player made a Trevor Lawrence amount of mistakes. Not a single player with more than 1 sack. The Panthers didn't even record a sack. Wait, Young Hoku's 3 field goals. There we go, that's a stat. Seahawks versus Texans. Hey, here's something I've never said. Davis Mills and the Texans were perfect on the opening series. General Davis Mills was 5 for 5 for 72 yards and a TD. A friendly reminder of just how bad the Seahawks defense can be. Mills did finish with 331 passing yards in this 20-point loss. Best, Bill Burr being the Texans punter. The difference between Bill Burr and the Texans, though, is that it takes Bill Burr an entire year to drop a new hour of comedy. And the Texans drop 3 hours of comedy every week. Best, the Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson connection is back and in full swing, or full tilt. I never learned what full tilt meant, so I don't know. Lockett had 142 yards receiving, but the surprise in this game may have been Rashad Penny ripping off 147 rushing yards. Seattle, though, 2 straight wins, even though it doesn't matter. Raiders versus Chiefs, worst. The Raiders defense being the only defense in the league who hasn't figured out how to slow the Chiefs down. KC was up 14-0 before I could finish taking my morning shit. KC was up 28-0 before I could finish wiping my morning shit. KC was up 35-0 before I finished washing my hands. My morning shit, opening for my morning jacket next week at Arrowhead Stadium. Even Josh Gordon scored a touchdown for the Chiefs. Best. Just 4 incompletions for Mahomes on 24 attempts. And really, the Chiefs' offense was productive with guys like Hardman, Derek Gore, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire doing a lot of the work. The thing that has sort of been missing this year are those guys making plays when Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce can't. Worst, never forget the Chiefs' mascot is a cop. And even though he looks like a cop, Hunter Renfrow is not a cop. Just the Raiders' leading receiver with 117 yards and a TD on 13 receptions. Best, knowing this couple right here goes home and makes love. She, of course, imagines Hunter Renfrow, and he, of course, imagines Andy Reid's mustache. Best, the Raiders huddling up on the Chiefs logo before the game. I love when things like this backfire. I love when people who have no right to be overconfident and cocky are. Ravens versus Browns, worst? It being week 14 and Jarvis Landry just scoring his first touchdown of the season. Imagine how many TDs he'd have right now if his dad started criticizing Baker Mayfield week 1. Baker, outside of 1 horrendous-looking interception to Anthony Averett, was efficient in this game. Worst, Lamar Jackson left and did not return due to an ankle injury. I was a little surprised a guy like Lamar, who rarely uses his legs to make plays, did not just tape it up and play through it. And in the time I can list all of the Ravens' key injuries right now, you can watch Tyler Huntley rush for a short gain. Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Ronnie Stanley, Nick Boyle, Patrick Ricard, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, Deshaun Elliott, Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe, and L.J. Fort. All injured now. Best, Myles Garrett taking advantage of another AFC North backup QB. Strip sacking Tyler the Huntley when the Huntley becomes the prey. Garrett got the sack, forced the fumble, got the recovery, and scored the touchdown. The only thing he didn't do was use Huntley's helmet like a weapon. Best, this penalty flag flying into this guy's coat hood. That's as rare as the Ravens' Chuck Clark recovering the onside kick in this one. A play so great the NFL YouTube channel didn't even bother putting it in the highlights. But damn, the Browns' defense was clutch to stop Baltimore after that recovery. If Myles Garrett doesn't score in this game, the Browns probably lose. Just 59 rushing yards for Nick Chubb, $190 and 2 TDs for Baker, and the Ravens got within 2 points of winning with 2 fourth-quarter TDs. Dallas versus football team, worst. FedEx Field is so shitty that the Cowboys brought their own heated seats for the sideline. Best, the Cowboys are glad to have Randy Gregory back, who tipped and picked this Taylor Heineke pass. Don't look now, but the Cowboys defense could be coming together at just the right time. Rookie of the year, Micah Parsons strip sacks Taylor Heineke in attempt to one-up Randy Gregory, and Armstrong takes it in for the scoop and score. That's back-to-back weeks we've seen defensive scores for the Cowboys. 6 straight weeks with the sack for Parsons, who should break the rookie sack record at 14.5 sacks. Right now, he has 12. Worst, Dak Prescott.
Prescott airs it out. Collins intercepted. It was to nowhere, and Landon Collins.
Best. I figured I should show the one highlight the football team had, which was this bomb Taylor Heineke threw to Cam Sims, who cheeked his way to quite possibly the catch of the weekend for a TD. Jags versus Titans. Worst. Hard to believe the Jaguars lost this game after it was made public that Urban Meyer calls all of his assistant coaches losers. Imagine being a first-year NFL head coach, having a horrible record, getting caught letting a co-ed grind on your married dick in your own bar in front of a mural of you and your wife, and having the stones to call the men you're supposed to be leading losers. What Urban Meyer is actually doing sounds like some shit I'd make up for a joke. He's the joke, and I'm jealous of how comically bad he is. Best. This was a huge win for the Titans. Not because they beat the biggest loser coach in the NFL, but for their playoff chances. Best. The Titans' run defense. They gave up just 8 rushing yards in this game. Julio Jones also returned, but this may have been the most boring shutout I've seen all season. Worst, whoever drew up this crossing route. Maybe Urban Meyer is right about his coaches. Worst, Trevor Lawrence threw more picks than the Jags scored points. 4 T-Law interceptions, no TDs. Urban Meyer should not just be fired but punished. His punishment? One co-ed after another grinds on his dick through his jeans until his penis is sawdust. Giants versus Chargers. Worst, whatever this is by Joey Bosa. Robot learning to poop, maybe? I think I'd rather watch a robot trying to shit for 3 hours than one more minute of Giants football. Mike Glennon was better than he was last week, but still really boring. And wake me up when Saquon Barkley does anything. Best, Herbie, fully loaded, is the best deep ball passer in the NFL. Justin Herbert threw a ball basically 200 yards to Jalen Guyton for this touchdown, which is weird considering Guyton only finished with 87 receiving yards on the day. Herbert didn't have his biggest game, but was essentially perfect. 275 passing yards, 3 TDs, and 0 picks in the evisceration of the Giants. Niners versus Bengals, oh my. Best, a healthy George Kittle. He had 181 yards last week, 151 this week, 3 TDs in those 2 games. Field Yates tweeted that since returning in Week 9, Kittle's 38 catches is tied for the most amongst all tight ends. His 530 yards is 120 more than any other tight end, 6 receiving TDs, most of any NFL player, and has 125.5 fantasy points, most amongst tight ends. There were 9 total sacks in this affair. Just like last week, Cincy got after the QB, but failed to protect their own quarterback. A big reason for that is Joe Mixon's lack of production the last 2 games, just 58 and 54 yards on the ground. I said the offense goes through him, and I was right. Best, since he did score 2 fourth-quarter TDs when it looked like this game was already over. Jamar Chase went off for 77 yards and a pair of tugs, including the one to tie the game, and Joe Burrow was perfect on the game-tying drive that started with a bad sack on the Bengals' own 5-yard line. Burrow was clutch with impressive throws late, and he was solid in overtime, orchestrating a lead-taking drive. Worst? The only reason this game went into OT was because Robbie Gould I mean, Gould? He is Gould when he misses, shanked a 47-yard game winner after Kittle got him in range. Best, Jimmy G was perfect on the game-winning drive and capped it off with the touchdown to Brandon Aiyuk. A heavily reviewed TD, one I still cannot believe was actually a touchdown, and is in contention for best TD of the year, and either of these teams could sneak into the playoffs. Bills versus Buccaneers. Worst, Tom Brady had 17 rushing yards in the first half. The Bills had 0 rush attempts from their running backs at that point. If Tom Brady has more rushing yards than your running backs, you deserve to lose. Best, the Buffalo Bills are good enough to hang with any team in the NFL. Worst, the Buffalo Bills aren't good enough to beat any team in the NFL. Tampa had a 24-3 lead heading into halftime, courtesy of Leonard Fournette touchdown and Brady chucking up prayers of throws that always get answered. It's truly astounding. Buffalo has a hard time generating pressure without blitzing, and their offensive line struggled to fend off a Bucs pass rush. Best, Buffalo chipped away at the lead. Their defense finally showed up, and Josh Allen rushed for a beautiful 18-yard TD and fired a couple tuds to Dawson Knox and Gabe Davis to send this game into OT. Allen finished with over 100 rushing yards, 90 of which came out of bounds on this slide, over 300 passing yards, and just 1 pick. Worst, the officials allowing Tampa's corners to molest the Bills receivers and then flag the Bills corners as soon as Tom Brady tries to throw in overtime. Mike Evans hugs Levi Wallace tighter than Levi's hug my juicy ass here. And the CBS broadcast looked like this, covering up the evidence of a fix. How is that defensive pass interference? I don't know. You could easily argue the shot Buffalo took to the end zone to Diggs should have been PI in the final seconds of regulation. Instead, Brady gets the underthrown ball call and then throws a game winner, his 700th touchdown pass. Not of this game, but for his big, dumb, long career. And finally, Sunday Night Football, Bears versus Packers. Best? Yeah, this is me. And I am Aaron Rodgers' brother. Do you know how I know I'm Aaron Rodgers' brother? He also never talks to me. Best, the Bears notched 3 very long touchdowns. Hakeem Grant runs past the whole Packers defense twice. And Damiere Byrd with the longest offensive play of the game for the Bears, going for an Urlacher's worth of yards to the house. That's 54 yards. Every Bears touchdown was exciting. It was just that a lot of the plays in between weren't. Worst, Justin Fields also threw another touchdown to Rasul Douglas, who has his 2nd pick 6 in the last 2 games. Douglas has 3 picks this season, and it feels like every single one of Douglas's picks are incredibly important. I'd say per pick, his are the most impactful by any corner this season. Worst, the Packers special teams. Hakeem Grant's punt return TD was the first punt return of the season in the NFL for a touchdown. It was 97 or 98 yards. If Green Bay gets bounced in the postseason early, I'm scared it will be because of their special teams. Best, Aaron Rodgers should be the MVP. He made some throws in the game that I still cannot believe. A dime to Devontae Adams, plus he got help from Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon along the way. And the final touchdown of the game to Devontae Adams. Adams reminded everyone why he, and not osteogenesis, is the #1 breaker of ankles on earth. First, he breaks your ankles. And then, of course, he breaks your fucking face. That's it. Thanks for watching the best and worst Week 14. The Broncos recap up tonight. You can click the video on the screen to watch more of my BS. And I'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, with the power rankings heading into next week.